right. Well, welcome. I'm Scott Solomon. I am the host of Wild World, and we are coming to you live from Antarctica. And so happy to be able to do this live event. Thank you to those of us who are tuning in from around the world. We are currently on board the National Geographic Explorer, and we are navigating through the Melchior Islands, which are located just along the west coast of the Antarctic Peninsula. And I am here as the host of a group from the Rice University Traveling Owls on part of this expedition by National Geographic Lindblad Expeditions. And we've spent the last several days exploring the Antarctic Peninsula, and it's absolutely amazing. Joining me here today is nature photographer Martin Gregus. Martin, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Scott.
I am kind of amazed that we're able to do a live stream from Antarctica. I should say we may have some technical difficulties that cause us to kind of cut in and out a little bit as we proceed. It's all just part of kind of being out here at the edge of the earth on an expedition.
Exactly. It is pretty amazing because only 3 years ago, we had to rely on
satellite phones to communicate. And even though it does count in out a little bit, it is pretty cool to be able to have that opportunity.
Absolutely. So I want to hear a little bit more from you about kind of your experience in Antarctica, both on this trip and previous trips. We are getting an announcement here, so you might hear a little bit of that. I'll pause for just a moment, but we are... Okay, so we're going to talk a bit about the expedition so far. We're going to talk a bit about Martin's experiences working here in Antarctica, as well as other regions. But first, I just want to say, for those of you that are new to Wild World, we are a podcast that is all about exploring the world. Each episode is about a different place in the world. And I interview a guest who has done some kind
of field research or exploration or photography. You're doing okay. So Martin, what have been some of the highlights so far for you of our expedition here in Antarctica?
Yeah, I mean, for me, some of the highlights are definitely working with the passengers on this one, especially because not often do I get to interact with passengers. My expeditions tend to be very small in terms of you get set out with a crew of 2 to 3 people. So it's always nice working on expedition trips because you get to interact with various guests, various people from around the world. I am an introverted extrovert, so I love to keep to myself. But in this capacity, I do enjoy sharing my stories and sharing this wonderful place with people. So that has been a really good highlight of this expedition, and as well just being in Antarctica. I mean, it is
a truly amazing and remarkable place, as you can see around us. So it is absolutely amazing in that regard.
Yeah. Power through. So Martin, you're a nature photographer. You've been, documenting some of the wildlife, some of the amazing scenery that we've been seeing here. How did you?
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing photography for around 20 years. It's been quite a remarkable journey in that regard. And I say 20 years, I mean, I started photography when I was 8 years old. So,
and I learned everything from my dad. He's a photographer. He grew up filming mostly commercials, portraits, the commercial side of photography, as well as documentary street photography. So that's kind of where I started. And then moving to Canada with my family, it's been absolutely remarkable getting involved with nature. So that's kind of where the journey outside began. I mean, I was always fascinated with animals my entire life, but moving to Canada and actually seeing all of these animals sort of started that journey for me of documenting our natural world. So that journey started, I want to say, in 2010. And ever since then, just every year, these expeditions develop into something more exciting, more remote, and just cooler and cooler.
That's awesome. Yeah. So how many times Antarctica now?
I've been to Antarctica over 5 times now, so not as extensive as the other members of our team by any means, but quite a few trips, mostly in the capacity of adventure tourism.
Yeah.
But with every trip, as I mentioned, I get to meet exciting and amazing guests. I also get to meet amazing team members who work in some of these amazing places, who work at McMurdo, who work at the Argentinian, Chilean, all of these bases. And as you talk to them, you realize, oh, there's other stories to be told here that haven't necessarily been told. You know, just even talking to our expedition leader, James, yesterday, he said, oh, it would be amazing if someone did a story on leopard seals and how they feed, because we always see them hunting penguins, but that's not necessarily people's desire to see certain things. We stay away from some aspects, but that's kind of what I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah, I mean, photography really is about storytelling, right? And so, you know, as you take on a photo assignment, or even as just you're out here right now, you're not necessarily working on a particular story, but you're trying to capture things. How do you sort of see this place here through photography? Like, what are you looking out for when you're trying to capture an image?
Yeah, I mean, I continuously try and look at the world from a slightly different perspective, whether that be from land, below the water, or from the air, because I do both underwater, on ground, and drone work. So everywhere I go, I try and look at it from those three perspectives, and how can that story from that place be told from a different angle. So even just being on this trip, I still get up every morning at 2, 3 a.m. to look out the window, see what the sunrise, there really isn't a sunrise. The sun kind of just dips above the horizon, is just to give it a little bit of a different perspective, because usually when everyone stops taking pictures is when you should start. Yeah, I mean, the light here has been remarkable. I've been struck by, you know, not only the long days, but just with the weather, it's constantly changing. The light just has this like almost magical kind of quality to it. And it's the constant change of this landscape that's just that's fascinated me ever since I first started coming to Antarctica and to the Arctic as well. Is people kind of get set on, oh, I want to see blue and clear skies, but then they wouldn't really see all the colors in the ice. They wouldn't really see certain things. So it's a nice trade-off where if you can get both of those things. Not to mention, we're in Antarctica. We want it to be cold. We want it to be snowing. We want it to be all of these things that early explorers fell in love with when they first visited.
That's right. I mean, we had an excursion this morning. We were out in the Zodiacs exploring in this just incredible place that had, you know, this sort of slushy ice coating the surface, these incredible icebergs, you know, the shape of the icebergs, that blue color that we were seeing. I mean, it was truly like otherworldly. And then to be able to also have, you know, a humpback whale kind of making its way through surfacing, hearing it breathing. And we even got to see a leopard seal, which for me, that was a real highlight.
Oh, for me, that was a highlight too.
And
that's the amazing part. And I mean, the ice here, right? Like yesterday, we saw a piece of ice starting to calve, and as it calved, it started to slowly tip over. And when it finished tipping over, it was still the exact same size, or maybe just slightly smaller. So it's a remarkable what we're seeing, but also what we're not seeing. And that's kind of my job, is to tell and show what that is.
Yeah. Now, I know you've worked not only in Antarctica, but also in the Arctic quite a bit as well. And of course, the polar regions of the world are ground zero for climate change. We know that. I'm wondering kind of what, in what ways you've noticed that, or you've experienced that, or that sort of comes through maybe in some of your work.
Yeah, I mean, change is constantly around us, and it is something that we witness firsthand. From my regard of what I've been trying to document is change in the natural world and what animals we're seeing that are new to these environments. What behaviors are we seeing that are new? Because as these places warm, the animals are adapting with that changing climate. And it is my sort of dream to document those changes. In the Arctic, I work with bears in the summer, which is somewhat unique for that region. In Antarctica, I want to document various other species that are potentially at risk from climate change. I mean, of course, we have some species like the Gentoo penguins that are actually, I wouldn't say thriving from climate change, but they are adapting a lot better than the other species. And it is really interesting to see that change. And unlike some people would think, like, oh, climate change, it's just our planet getting warmer. The same for hundreds and thousands of years are now just becoming more extreme. You know, your summers are getting hotter, your winters are getting colder, your summers are lasting longer, your winters are shorter. So everything is kind of a little bit all over the place, and our animals are needing to adapt to it, but we're forcing them to adapt to it at a much greater pace.
Yeah. So I want to encourage folks who are watching this live, if you have questions for myself or for Martin, feel free to submit those. Oh, and I'm hearing that we have some questions coming in already. One question is, where exactly are we? And so feel free to jump in here, but I think the place is called the Melchior Islands. Is that right?
It is, yes. They're all around us. There are a group of islands, actually. We were near the peninsula this morning. We made our way from the peninsula yesterday. We made our way from the peninsula yesterday.
Which is really exciting. Always a special opportunity for the guests
to touch ground of the seventh continent. And now we're slowly making our way back up north. You would think we're heading down south because that's what we are always told as the general sense of direction. But we're now making our way back up north to King George Island.
Yes. And somebody also was asking if we are taking ice cores, and we haven't done that on this expedition, but we did this morning do a plankton tow, which was kind of a neat experience. You weren't on the Zodiac with us when we were doing that, but you know, this is the idea here is that as we were cruising around in the Zodiac, we just pulled a net behind us that can kind of pull and capture. It's just kind of got a mesh screen and can capture plankton, and plankton are really sort of the base of the food web, especially krill, right?
Yeah, especially down here. I mean, it is one of the main reasons we saw a huge gathering of humpback whales a few days ago. They were all feeding on krill. It is unfortunate that we're also seeing quite a lot of krill fishing vessels along our journey, which is somewhat rare, but it goes back to the change aspect and how we are adapting, how our planet is adapting, and how we are forcing it to adapt. Because, you know, we are in one of the most remote parts of the world where if you think 100 years ago, not even 100 years ago, 100 years
ago, try and make it to the South Pole. That was not that long ago. 150 years in the grand scheme of things is not that long ago, but that was when
some of these areas had sailboats coming through them, and now we're here on a huge relatively large expedition ship, and there's other boats around us as well, right? And even just in the time I've worked here, that number has doubled. Not to mention speaking to the other part of the expedition team who have, when they started working here, National Geographic and Lindblad were the only vessels, or some of the few vessels that were here at that time. So that change is coming, and it's coming relatively fast, and the places that were inaccessible are just becoming more and more accessible every day.
Yeah. So are you thinking about other sort of possible, you know, photography assignments or stories that you want to tell here in Antarctica in the future?
Yeah, I mean, my list after every trip isn't the kind of list where I go somewhere and I tick it off and that list gets shorter. That list triples and quadruples every single time I go on any of these trips. So I'm trying to develop a story on emperor penguins. I think it would be amazing to share their story. I mean, we haven't really seen anything fully come out since March of the Penguins. And it would be really amazing to use new technology, developed camera equipment to tell that story and live with them. I think the stories I'm trying to tell is to live with these animals and see what goes on when we're not there.
Yeah.
I did that with polar bears. I want to do that here, like I said, with the emperor penguins, to embed ourselves in their landscape and observe and see what is going on, see how those animals are interacting with one another, with their environment, with the changing climate, and be really able to share that story. So like I said, emperor penguins, another one is killer whales. There's obviously the rare behavior that we've been witnessing of killer whales wave washing Weddell seals from the ice flows. That is a behavior I would love to document, because as our planet warms, as Antarctica changes, we're getting less and less ice flows. So there's actually scientific data to prove that that behavior is declining. So to document not just that behavior, but what are these orcas now changing their behavior to be? Because if that behavior is declining, there surely is a behavior that is increasing. We just need to figure out what that is.
Yeah.
So I would love to spend more time with the whales down here as well.
Yeah, that would be amazing. Yeah. Are we getting any more questions coming in? If not, yeah, I'll just ask another one myself, which is, I guess we've seen a lot of wildlife. We've seen humpback whales. We've seen, I think, 3 different species of penguins.
Yes.
We've seen, several species of seals, including the leopard seal. I was so excited about. What is there a particular species in Antarctica that for you is like your holy grail, or you're like, you get so excited if you see that? I know you're excited about the leopard seal today.
I was really excited about the leopard seal, and in particular because one of the projects I want to do down here is on leopard seals.
Yeah.
And it was, I mentioned earlier, I was having this discussion with our EL yesterday, and we see leopard seals as these dangerous predators, and rightfully so, they are. We see them hunting penguins, and it is a sort of brutal way that they feed on them. But that being said, they feed on krill, and we haven't really seen them shown as that, because I think as people, we get stuck on these narratives of the way we want to see the world. We want to see sharks, but we're attracted to sharks because sharks attack people. Right. We want to see polar bears as predators because polar bears attack people. We want to villainize these animals. We want to see them as certain things, and we love to look at them with glasses and shape them in a way that we want to see them. And that is not necessarily the case with a lot of these animals. Yeah. And that is also not the case necessarily for leopard seals. I mean, they are very dangerous, and of course we should respect them as we do with any animal. Yep. But it would be nice to have that story told in a different way, because maybe if people see animals and build that relationship with them, we would be more inclined to preserving them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, you've talked about photography as a story. Are we back? Okay. Yeah. So
winning these,
incredible awards like like Wildlife Photographer of the Year 4 times, a real tribute to your work and the hard work that's gone into it. How do you know if you're being successful in your mission? So you're wanting to share this. Yeah. So awards, of course, great to get that recognition. Are there other metrics that you use or ways that you sort of judge success?
Yeah, and I think in general, judging success is also very relative term in a way, and I mean it is a reason I took a break from not necessarily photography but competitions when I was younger. I mean I started photography when I was 8 years old, so I was incredibly young and fortunate to have had that opportunity. And it was at that time that I won Wildlife Photographer of the Year, my category. I was awarded other prizes at Wildlife Photographer of the Year. So I switched.
But I think
As a
as the teenager growing up,
being a wildlife photographer, a photographer in general, you are continuously battling this idea that maybe you're not good enough, maybe your photography could be better. What can I change? What can I do better? And you're really hard on yourself.
Yeah.
And competitions, as much as they can show you otherwise, they can also continue that narrative. So as a teenager, I was really struggling with that, and I kind of stopped submitting to competitions because I was like, you know what, I don't want someone to tell me that this isn't good enough, because I'm already continuously battling with myself of, is it?
Yeah.
So I stopped. Then I entered after doing polar bears in the summer, ended up winning again my category, getting featured in National Geographic, and that kind of emphasized that, okay, what I am doing is good enough. I'm just being really hard on myself. But that baseline still continues.
To new photographers
Is just because someone tells you your picture isn't good enough, just because someone tells you you're not good enough in anything, doesn't necessarily mean it's so.
Yeah.
Photography is relative, and just because a picture means something to me doesn't mean it's going to mean something to you, but it might mean something to someone else. And that's just, we're people, we're different. So
absolutely, that's a great message. Yeah. We're getting a question coming in from Katie West. So the question is, what are the primary challenges of working in this environment?
I mean, are
there any?
No, there's zero. There's absolutely nothing. No, I'm very much kidding.
Clearly, yes. Yeah.
I mean, one of them, as if this whole podcast couldn't emphasize, is connection.
Yeah.
Is working in these environments is tough. Not
equipment, but our equipment also doesn't necessarily work sometimes in these conditions, and when it breaks,
we may not be able to fix it. So we need backups on backups on backups on backups, which is why, I mean, in one of my presentations on this ship, I showed a suitcase full of, I showed a picture with 20 suitcases. And half of that is something not even half, 85% of that is something I never used. But they're just backups to fix, to repair. Yeah. And as much as we are photographers, we also end up being mechanics, repairmen, various other capacities, because you kind of have to be everything. And that's the main challenge, is equipment and the environment. The wildlife and photographing that wildlife is maybe 10, 15, 20% of the job. The rest is navigating that environment, knowing that subject. Taking a picture is the small part, it's the tip of the iceberg, but everything else, exactly. It's knowing that environment, knowing that.
It's really, really important in that regard. So that would be the main one. Yeah, the environment, and many times
even working in the Arctic, rarely do I feel in danger from the wildlife, but the environment tries to kill me multiple times a day. So.
It's a tough place to work.
Yes.
Yeah. But it's pretty cool that you've got here.
Yeah. And that's one of the it's part of the other amazing aspects of actually being able to not just do these short expedition trips, long expedition trips, like I said, to document these animals in a small team, but it's being able to then see this environment on a luxury vessel like this one, where you quite literally get to sit in a nice warm library right now looking at this amazing scenery, eating amazing meals and sharing drinks with amazing people.
Yep.
Where a lot of the time I see this environment in a tent at minus 35, buried in snow, eating dry packed meals that are running out.
Yeah, it's worth saying we are not suffering here on this expedition, are we? No, we're doing just fine. Yeah, yeah,
exactly.
Well, it sounds like we might have another question for Martin. So yeah, we have a question from Kelly Wienersmith. Hey, Kelly, and she's wondering what's been the most surprising thing so far and the most incredible animal. Any thoughts?
I mean, let's hear you.
Well, you know. Yeah, so the penguins are incredibly cute. We got to, hang out in a penguin colony and just sort of watch them doing their thing, like, walking along their highways and being penguins and scooting on their bellies every now and then. I could have sat there all day and watched them. But I think kayaking among humpback whales for me is something that I'm never going to forget. It was a real pinch me moment of like, just being surrounded by, first of all, these vertical peaks, so much ice and snow, and then having these whales just sort of slowly moving among us. That for me is the thing I think at the moment. It's going to take a while to sink in all of it, but how about you?
I mean, for me, it's sailing amongst icebergs.
Yeah.
Again, going back to what I grew up watching, obviously Titanic. And you're like, okay, well, icebergs are dangerous, all these things. And then here we are, and you look out your window while eating breakfast, lunch, or dinner, and there's a wall of ice next to the ship, and we're sailing by it. It's never ceases to amaze me.
Yeah.
That's one of those wow moments that you continuously have to pinch. You're looking out the window of, oh my God, I am watching this, and who else is watching this? And from a wildlife perspective, I think it is the Gen 2 penguins. They are not my favorite penguin, and I apologize, but there's a moment, and I'll actually do a talk about this later today. There's a moment when they are stealing rocks and pebbles from other colonies, and just growing up, I always watched David Attenborough. And there was this one segment in Frozen Planet, I believe, and there was a shot of the Gen 2s, and there's one, and he's building his nest, and the female's sitting on the nest, and we pan to this other penguin who's slyly watching them from the side, and when that one isn't watching, he tiptoes over there, steals his rocks, and takes them to his nest, and his female, and is super excited.
So I know we're a little bit limited on time, so we've got some more questions coming in. So I think we're going to try to bring on a few of our other guests here if we have time for that. But Martin, I want to thank you so much for sharing a little bit of your sort of experience, not only on this trip, but just the incredible background that you have working in polar regions, including Antarctica, as a photographer, as an explorer. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's been my pleasure.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Sharing this journey and sharing this podcast with you. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Cheers.
Yeah. Kayla, would you like to jump on? We're gonna
I'm gonna pass
switch
on
over
the
here
torch here.
and hear from one of our guests and a member of the Rice Track. Yeah, we're getting some questions coming in, and I would say keep those questions coming. But while those are coming in, I'm going to say hi to my next guest, Kayla Wilbur. Hi, Kayla.
Hello.
Great to have you join us as well. This is not the first time that we've traveled together, is it?
No, it is not.
You were a student in the class that I teach at Rice University that goes down to Belize.
Correct, yeah.
And that was a little different.
Yeah, a bit warmer.
A bit warmer. So I'm just sort of curious to hear for you, like what's your experience been like so far on this trip?
Yeah, well, I guess I first sort of got the itch to go to Antarctica whenever I went to the Antarctic Discovery Center in New Zealand.
Oh, cool.
And they have like a little simulation room where it's like cold and icy, and they tell you about all the like wildlife that you might see there. And I was like, oh, I gotta go someday. So, it was sort of an impetus for me to, make the leap. And so I particularly really, really, really love seals. So as I was telling you earlier, I'm playing my little game of Pinniped Bingo, where I'm trying to see all 33 species before I die. So
Love that.
this trip so far, I've seen Weddell seals, an elephant seal, a crab-eater seal, saw the leopard seal earlier. I think that's all the ones you've seen so far. Yeah,
incredible.
Yeah,
Pinniped Bingo. I think
Yeah.
that could become a thing. Like now everybody's hearing about it. They're going to want to play along too.
Yeah.
Have you made an actual bingo card for it, or is it just kind of living in your head?
It's just been living in my head, but I feel like after this trip, I've gotten enough that I need a real checklist.
I know, right? So what is it about pinnipeds, the seal family, that makes you love them so much?
Well, they're just really dark. Like, they like itch themselves with their little flippers and their whiskers. Like, it's just so cute, Like, I hate to be the guy who's like only in it for the like charismatic megafauna or whatever, but like, man, those seals, I love them.
They're awfully cute. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So has kind of anything surprised you so far on this trip?
Yeah, I guess I had this vision in my mind that like everything would be completely covered in ice, but we'd have actually like had some landings where it's been like rocky, and some of the colonies have just been, the colonies of penguins have just been like sort of in the rocks. So I guess I was expecting more just like giant iceberg land, which, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of ice here, but
There is a lot of ice. Yeah, we're looking out, and I don't know if you can see in the background much here, but we've got some islands behind us, very much
Peeking out. And but yeah, there's really just
there's ice everywhere, but this is a continent, right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
these are
There's
islands.
real land here.
Yeah, I know, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. The rice traveling owls, or have you done any others?
Nope, this is my first one. Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool.
So, yeah.
Good. Well, it's really fun to get to see you again and get to travel with you
Yeah,
again,
yeah.
having traveled together in Belize and now in Antarctica.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming on, Kayla.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
And could we get somebody else to join us? Maybe Kendall, would you like to hop on and share a little bit of your experience?
Here's the map.
So we're going to have Kendall Burton joining us next, who's another member of the Rice Traveling Owls group. And we're getting a little low on time here.
free to
Low on time here.
feel free to keep sending those in, and we'll try to get to as many as we can.
If there are questions that come in that we don't get a chance to answer, we'll try to get answers to them later, even after the live stream ends. So, Kendall Burton, hi, welcome. Thanks for coming on.
Glad to be here.
And just what stands out to you as you think about the trip so far? That maybe things you're gonna.
Just the icebergs. I'm
Yeah.
amazed by the icebergs,
Yeah.
the colors of them, the blue that you see, that it's so hard to capture in the pictures.
Right.
And it's just this glow of beautiful light that is nothing like I've ever seen in my life.
That's right. Yeah.
It's been gorgeous.
I agree. The blue color of some
Mhm.
of the ice is something and it's hard to capture it in
It
pictures,
is.
right?
I'm like, is there something wrong with my camera? It's just
Yeah.
gray and neon blue and white.
That's right.
And then I realized, oh, it is gray, neon blue, and white.
Oops.
See,
Oh, don't worry about that.
sorry. Still here.
I might
If you just flip it around upside down. Just this part here. There you go.
All right.
All right. And you don't
even need to worry about that if you don't want to. Yeah. So let's see. Are we getting more questions coming in? Sounds like we are. Oh yeah, we had a question about the crab eater seal. I didn't see this seal today. Did you get to see that one?
I did not see that one.
Yeah. I saw the leopard seal today, and then the Weddell seal one of the other days. I think our first day that we arrived here. From what I understand, the crab eater seal is kind of a misnomer in that it's the result of a mistranslation from the German. The German word for and I'm going to probably get the details wrong here, so don't quote me on this, but it was a mistranslation from German. They actually eat krill, and I think it's the case that the German word for krill sounds something like crab, so it's really like krill eating.
Yes.
Right. So it's a and in fact, I was surprised to learn that there really aren't any crabs in Antarctica.
I don't think there are. No.
Yeah, and we haven't seen any, right?
Lots of penguins, though.
Lots of penguins. Do you have a favorite penguin of the species that we've seen so far?
I don't. I do have a favorite moment, though, is discovering the Penguin Highway.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
That is brilliant that they carve out their own highway and just truck along on it. And
yeah. You can,
so adorable.
You can kind of make out the highways even when the penguins aren't on them, right?
And seeing them jump in the water is amazing.
Oh, yeah.
You just think of penguins walking around on the ice, and then you look out in the waters and they're diving away.
Yeah, I mean, they look kind of clumsy and goofy when they're on land, but they're incredibly graceful when they're actually out, swimming around in the water. And
they are
getting to see them kind of, they leap out of the water as they're swimming along. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Any particular place that we've been so far that's been a favorite of yours? Every place is so different, right?
I mean, I would have to obviously say the mainland of Antarctica, and stepping foot on land for the first time
on the continent.
It was just surreal. I mean, it's so many people's dreams, and to be able to do it is check that off the bucket list.
Right? I know. And it is kind of surreal. Sometimes I have to sort of like pinch myself and remind myself that we really are here. It feels like something out of a dream. Yeah, I know. It's totally wild. Yeah, that's right. We're getting another question. Oh, yes. So we've got a question about what the Drake Passage was like. So an interesting aspect of the trip that we're doing is we crossed the Drake Passage, which is this kind of infamous stretch of ocean between the southern tip of South America and the Antarctic Peninsula where we are, that has a reputation for being kind of some of the stormiest and wildest seas. How did it match your expectations?
I honestly was hoping it would be rougher. I was told on a scale of 1 to 10 that we were at about a 3.
Yeah.
I wanted just for like 10 minutes for waves to be crashing and it to be one of those moments that
experience of like really getting the worst of the worst, just so you can sort of have experienced it. Yeah. I mean, I would say we got lucky in the sense that it was pretty comfortable. I mean, there was a lot of movement. The boat was rocking, and there were people that were getting seasick.
I was trying to send coverage to my mom, and she was like, "This doesn't look that bad." I'm like, "It's bad. You have to hang on to ropes. It's just hard to capture."
That's right.
Kind of like the beauty of what we're seeing in person.
Yeah.
You can't really capture it.
Yeah, the moment when they had ropes strung up in the hallways so that people had something to hold on to, I was like, okay, I guess this is kind of serious. Yeah.
Yes.
but it wasn't
stepping.
that bad. Yeah, exactly.
I was a little disappointed that it
wasn't kind of the infamous Drake Passage, but I'm also kind of glad that we're not going to have to go back over it again.
I agree.
Yeah.
So it'll be nice to fly out instead of having to trek back through the passage again.
That's right. Right. Yeah. Well, I do think we're just about out of time here. So I do want to thank everybody that has sent questions. And if there's additional questions that we didn't get a chance to get to, we're going to try to get answers to those out through our social media channels. So be sure to check that. We are at Wild World Show. And on YouTube, which if you're watching this,
is at Wild World Podcast. And we are doing this live event to kick off the second season of the podcast. Let's see, are we still transmitting, or
second season of Wild World, and we are going to start releasing new episodes for our second season beginning on December 19th. So stay tuned to hear more content from Wild World, with a new episode coming out every other week on Thursdays, starting with December 19th. So I just want to close out by thanking all of the people that made this live event possible. It's not easy to pull off something like this, where we're streaming live from Antarctica. And I really want to particularly thank the folks at National Geographic Lindblad Expeditions for making this live event possible. And I want to thank the Rice University Traveling Owls, which is the group that made this trip possible for me and for the other members of our group. And I'd also like to thank our producers, Todd and Mark at 3Wire Creative. They're the guys behind Wild World that make it work and make it sound good every episode. And I want to thank all of our listeners for tuning in, not only today, but for listening to all of our episodes. We would love to hear from you. We would love to know if there's places or ideas for.
Feel free to send those in. And I want to thank everyone that
joined us today. So thank you, Kendall.
Thanks for having me. Now I can say I did a podcast from Antarctica.
Yes, you can.
Yay.
Exactly. Thank you to Kayla, and thank you to Martin Gregus for sharing his knowledge and expertise about Antarctica as well. So that's it. I'm going to sign off. Thank you again. We are live from Antarctica. My name is Scott Solomon. Join me next time as we explore another part of our wild world.